I'm building a startup called DILEMAA. DILEMAA is a Q&A social media app designed for sharing and solving dilemmas. And I've been building this app for about 6 months. So I attended a few conferences, competitions, and I had my own startup booth. The events that I attended, there were about a few hundred people there. But we decided we want to take that to the next level by joining a conference where there are 40,000 attendees, 2,000 startups, thousands of journalists, partners, and investors. And this conference is called Collision Tech Conference 2024. It's in Toronto, Canada, and we were lucky enough to have our own startup booth there. And in this video, I want to show the reality of having a startup booth in a big conference like Collision. First, Collision is a 3-day event, and we had our booth on the second day. That means on the first day and the third day, we can just go in and join sessions, masterclasses, and talk to startups. And that's what we did. First day, we just had breakfast in Tim Hortons. And by the way, there are Tim Hortons everywhere in Toronto, Canada. But yeah, it was nice, and we went to the conference. And the first thing I saw were just thousands of people. And when I got into the building, I saw hundreds of startups and booths and thousands of people walking around talking. And the interesting part that I found is that in Collision, everything happens simultaneously. I'm talking about masterclasses, guest speaker sessions, startup booth, pitching competitions, other events. Everything is happening at the same time. So it was very crowded and there was just so much stuff going on. The first thing that I noticed is that my energy was draining like crazy. And since everything is happening at once, I had to sacrifice some of the sessions I wanted to attend by joining other sessions. So even though I want to see a pitch competition, if there's a guest speaker over there, I have to choose either I'm going to stay in the pitch competition and watch the startups or go back and watch the guest speaker talking. And also, I forgot to mention, it's really loud. Just imagine that, but for like 8 hours for 3 days. It's actually crazy. Also, I found it interesting because I met really interesting startups there, but also 20 to 30% of the startups that I talked to were just salespeople. They just stopped me when I was walking and said, hey, this is a $100 coupon and you can use this to get this service and you're gonna benefit a lot from this. And I'm like, thank you. But except for that, I met interesting people and made connections. But after walking for hours, of course, we're starting to get hungry. So we went out to get food from the food trucks. There were about 20 food trucks. So we had a lot of options, but we decided not to get any because they were expensive. As a broke student, I gotta save my money. So we went back to the building and we ordered chicken from the deli. And that was pretty good. And then we also sat down in the hall because we were just so tired, we had to take a few minute break. And one of the things that I don't think a lot of tech conferences say is that a lot of people walk around to join booths, talk to people, and network, but there are also a good portion of people just outside in the hallway, just sitting down, looking at their phone and their laptops. So after a few minute break, we just came back and joined more sessions. I learned valuable insights. And if you see closely to the booth, you see pink panels, green panels, and purple panels. And these represents different stages of startups. For example, startups with the pink panels are called alpha startup. Alpha startups are the ones that got funded between $0 to $1 million, which is a really big gap. Like imagine I got funded $950,000 and I'm next to a booth where the student startup got funded $6,000. I'm talking about myself. And then we have beta startups. These are the ones that got funded between $1 to $5 million. And then we have growth startups, which are the ones that got funded more than $5 million. And also, shout out to my friend who also has his own booth. Check out his startup called Own Classroom. It's like a coding platform for universities to use to teach students how to code. And that was about it for the first day. After 5 p.m., there were after hours, meaning a lot of people walk to another location and get a drink and just network with people. And I honestly thought this would be a good opportunity for me to talk to investors or other startup people, but it kind of broke my fantasy because one, there were just so many people and sometimes the locations are private, which I didn't know. So like, even though I want to talk to people, they're like, oh, this is a private place. And I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. And I leave and I'm like, where else am I supposed to go? Like, do I just talk to a person who's walking by? Like, that's just awkward. And one small drink is like 15 bucks. So I was really tired at that point. So I went back to the Airbnb. I remember the first day I walked total 25,000 steps, which I don't think I ever walked that much in one day this year. So yeah, my legs were literally dead, but I can't give up because the second day is our booth day. So we got there at 8:30 a.m. and we have to be there till 5 p.m. So we have to stand up for 8 to 9 hours. And as you can see, there are no chairs in the booth, so you have to just stand up. And this is our booth setup. I had the DILEMAA panel, my PowerPoint slides, a demo app, and DILEMAA website. Over the hours, I talked to really interesting people, but this is what I've learned. Investors don't really come a lot to alpha startups. And if you're just standing there and you expect investors to come to you, it's going to be pretty rare. One thing that I found interesting that I don't think a lot of people talk about is that when you have your own booth and there's a lot of people, good portion of them are salespeople. I talked with a lot of people, but 30 to 40% were just straight up selling their services to me. And I was not really a big fan of that. Like, yes, they were nice, but it was like this. Hi, what's your startup? So I talk about my startup, Dilemma, for 20 to 30 seconds, and I end the pitch because if they have any other questions, this is the time. And they're like, great. Well, I'm doing a startup called blah, 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 and we have this service called blah, 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 and it's only blah, blah, blah dollars, and you can benefit from us by doing blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, wow, interesting, thank you. And then they go to the next booth and do the same thing. And just imagine 3 to 4 out of 10 people you talk to are these type of people. It is not that great. The third day, which was the last day, was really chill. There were also startup sessions, guest speaker series, master classes, and a lot of stuff happening. But my main reason to go into the third day was because of mentor hours. Mentor hours was one of the events where startups can apply by filling out the application, and you will meet a VC, a venture capitalist, or someone to talk about either leadership, fundraising, or other things. And I chose to learn about fundraising, and I got to meet with this venture capitalist from Canada, and I learned a lot from him. But I'll make another video about what I learned from him. And yeah, that was kind of it for the third day. If you notice, the amount of content I say for the first day is so different than the amount of content I say in the third day. For example, for the first day, I had a lot to talk about because there's a lot of things happening. There were a lot of people. But the second day, there were less people showing up. And the third day, it was really chill. I think some of the startups who showcase on the first day or the second day already left on the third day, so they don't show up. Or people were already tired with the first day that they don't show up on the second day or the third day. So those are what happened during Collision Conference. Now, I want to go over a few basic questions. Was it worth it? Now, I spent about $750 for the ticket and $1,000 for Airbnb. And this is USD, by the way. So I spent about $2,000, and including food and transportation, I spent about $2,300. And in my experience, it is pretty questionable to say it was worth it for me because I think we were too early to join Collision Tech Conference. We were just one of the many alpha startups out there, but a lot of people were focused on beta and growth startups. I only get to talk to one investor, which was the venture capitalist in mentor hours, and I didn't meet any investors at all. All of this for $2,300 as a broke student. I wish I could have earned something more. And that's probably on my end. I spent this much money and I should have probably talked to more people and been more energetic, but I'll take this as an experience. So I would say if your startup got funded a lot and you have traction and you have a good community, a big conference like Collision Tech Conference would be definitely worth it. It's a way where you can showcase your brand, tell people that your business exists. But if you're like a consumer app like me and you're going there to just get users, I don't think it's the best idea to go there. You want to go there by showing your brand to important people and potentially your clients. But for me, it was learning and getting to know investors, which I failed. Overall, it was a very significant experience. This was the first time in my life that I joined a tech conference this big. Also, that is in another country. I learned that if I want to do it again, I better be prepared because it was really overwhelming. I think I got tanned overall while I was in Toronto, Canada. It was really hot. And yeah, it was definitely fun, definitely interesting, and that's about it. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I hope I see you again. Bye-bye.